In celebrating the release of Gridman in the US, Hasbro and Toy, you could learn something from Tsuburaya and Mill Creek. It's time to take a look back at DiC's first attempt at capitalizing on Power Rangers with their own series, Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad, quadruple S for short, adapting footage from the Japanese series Denko Chojin Gridman. Samurai was the first of two series DiC created that showed on regular over-the-air TV, while Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters aired on the USA Network. It was the more successful of the two shows, lasting for 53 episodes instead of the usual 40, which became a problem for the production due to the original Japanese series only going for 39 episodes. I think it was a much better series due to several factors. It was run by Jim Minogue and Mark Zaslav, who helped create and write memorable animated series from Tailspin, Bobby's World, to Shaolin Showdown. They also landed Matthew Lawrence just before he became a big thing during his short time on Blossom, followed by Boy Meets World, as the main lead Sam Collins. The second biggest bonus was the use of Gridman's Japanese footage. Even though Samurai has the same limited budget that Tattooed dealt with, including unable to shoot outside, they were stuck in that basement set. We couldn't even see Sam's house. His sister, voiced by Katsushi, screamed through a hamper vent.
Oh, big brother!
Elizabeth!
It was offset by Gridman's footage, making the show feel bigger just like Power Rangers did. It still has the corny acting of Tattooed.
I can't let him steal her away from me.
But the main cast and supporting cast were far more interactive and memorable. They had character arcs through the series with a few issues here and there. I think also the writers had fun working on the series because they would throw in references or jokes from the show's Japanese origin, in particular 2 episodes. Japan returned the nod in the sequel anime series Gridman, with the title and some of the character names in the series using Samurai's English names of Gridman's gear. Story. The series follows Sam, a high school kid, and his close friends Tanker, Sydney, Amp, and later Lucky, just having normal lives. They want to create a music band. Sam likes a girl at school. He tries to be funny and impress her, which is where Malcolm Frink enters the plot. The show's human villain. He's jealous.
Not if I can stop you, Sam, old buddy, old pal.
Can't really stand anyone around him. He's a loner and loves to hurt people. Surprisingly, he's basically Ken from Digimon Season 2. Note to note, nearly copies him 6 years before he even existed. Obsessed with himself, alone as much as possible, loves computers, no real relationship, wants to control people, has a digital being, uses his hatred and lack of ethics to create monsters and act out. But he is the weakest character of the main cast. The problem lies with him being second fiddle to the real villain, Kilokhan.
You are not dreaming, meat thing.
An advanced computer virus that's able to bring Malcolm's artwork to life, which he then sends into various systems around the internet and destroys them from within. These monsters could bring down power grids, phone lines, destroy any type of technology, connected or not connected to the internet. There's so much Kilokhan and so much focus on Team Samurai, Malcolm starts repeating himself with very few episodes to show his range. He's just stuck as generic angry kid. He doesn't get a chance to grow till basically when the show was over. Tim Curry does the voice of Kilokhan. He steals the show. He is the best actor on Samurai. I just wish they had done something more with Malcolm. They had the right idea in letting Kilokhan take control of his body for an episode. They could have had done more with this, where Malcolm gets worse, but then slowly realizes his mistakes, so that gave him a reason to look at his actions. Actually, to be fair, Sam kind of suffers the same issues as Malcolm. It's just that he has his friends to give him character. This happens because of the changes from the Japanese material. A lot of things are kept from Gridman. The whole digital aspect, Kilokhan was called Khan Digifur. The major change was Servo versus Gridman. Sam accidentally went into the digital world thanks to a power surge while he was trying out some computer recording software. That's how he gets the Datacom device and transforms into Servo. If you ever wondered why in the first episode Sam was able to fight and knows how Servo's powers worked, well, it's because in Gridman, Servo is actually his own character, technically. 3 kids created a look of Servo, but then was taken control by the police officer Gridman in order to fight Khan in the original series. Naoto, Sam's counterpart, would merge with Gridman. That's how he knew how to fight. It's also why Sam doesn't get much to do because of the lost father-son-like relationship. Plus, it's what causes the rules of Servo to change in the Christmas episode, which was from the Gridman series finale. All of a sudden, Servo wasn't really Sam, he was a separate being. They basically couldn't get around the footage. Tanker, Sydney, and Amp really do save the show in this area. Just like Power Rangers, their archetypes, one of them had to be the techie, so Sydney is the one who deals with all the computer lingo.
Sydney!
Tanker, I'm not going to say he's the dumb jock. They're not playing him like that. He's more of a laid-back character, the guy who likes to help out his friends. He just doesn't pay attention.
Isn't there an instruction manual for this thing?
Sydney, she is the geek. She's there to explain all the material, come up with the ideas to help Servo fight.
Well, whatever's gotten into your computer, you're linked to it, and vice versa.
They all get focus episodes. That's thanks to them later on working and being a part of the fight. They all operate different vehicles, which could combine into armor for Servo. Think Thunder Megazord from MMPR Season 2. Next up, Amp. Probably a lot of people's favorite character. Amp was a mystery in himself. The guy would do crazy things. He made a science project in his boot. He would say things that make no sense.
It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, that's not till 7/14 next April the 23rd.
But then other times he turns into Socrates spouting out wisdom. He's an enigma. A nice bonus, none of the main cast felt like copies of the MMPR characters like Tattooed did. They did everything they could to make them feel different. Sadly, while Amp was a popular character, Troy Slayton left the show before it finished, being replaced by a new character, Lucky. I looked up to see why he left. There's no real information on it, but my theory was that he just chose not to renew his contract. The series was intended to be 40 episodes like every other Deke-produced show, and with them using Gridman's finale during episode 37, the added 13 episodes were done most likely last minute, so Amp just left. The departure wasn't a bad one. They respected the character, they gave him a farewell, and brought in Lucky. He was finding himself, the stereotypical surfer dude, kind of like Dustin in Power Rangers Ninja Storm. He got a few episodes, but he couldn't really replace Amp. This also brings me to the supporting cast. There was Jennifer, Sam's girlfriend, which he was never really good with, either being Servo got in the way or he screwed up a lot. Principal Pratchard and his daughter Yolanda, while mainly stuck in the school part of the series, Yolanda and Jennifer got to be in focus episodes, especially when they did an alternate timeline episode where Yolanda was the main villain replacing Malcolm. The two girls, along with Principal Pratchard, were mostly featured in all the episodes, keeping the variety up. There were school episodes for Sam and the others, unlike Tattooed, which just ignored the high school part. Finally, Rimba Starkey, the school's cafeteria lady. If you wanted a character that cracked jokes or did lots of references, but not only that, she helped out every now and again. She would always have a face in the background waiting for you while she watched Sam or Amp do stupid things. All these characters were original to Samurai. They came up with fun adventures, adapted the footage pretty good, especially for their first time. The only point it started getting dumb was with the last 13 episodes because they were stuck. The show was more successful than anticipated, so what do you do when you got no more footage? The same thing MMPR did after episode 40. Many monsters were repeated a lot of times. However, this did get offset with them using more of Gridman's exterior footage not seen in the earlier episodes, which is where the Japanese references popped up mainly. The last thing of note is the series finale episode because it was shot entirely outside and Matthew Lawrence was not present in the last episode. They most likely had scrapped the sets and it was intended to be a way for the production to continue on with something else, showing that Servo could be anyone, hence Tanker being Servo in the last episode. But because there was no second season of Gridman, or really anything Deke could use in its place, I mean, they could have tried to use a Ultraman season, since Gridman already did a lot of things Ultraman did, but it's possible that Ultraman rights were tied up elsewhere, or they didn't want to bother adapting another series. Maybe Deke had intended to create their own series, like Tattooed, to work as a season 2, but because that series didn't do so well, or because there was no way they could afford to shoot original Servo material, nothing came from the series finale, besides focusing on Tanker, Lucky, and Sid. Yes, Samurai had more similarities to Power Rangers in aesthetics, but I was able to treat it as its own series and not just a dumb knockoff. I wish Samurai did continue. If they had gotten a bigger budget, they could have filmed more original material, they could have changed it up, maybe the Servo powers could be rotated between the team, do something different from MMPR. I would have liked to have seen a crossover with Tattooed and Samurai, but Deke only did these 2 shows. It's very campy, but I would suggest watching it once. You might like it and then want to check out the original series Gridman. Thanks for checking out the review. Subscribe if you want to see more, and if you remember a movie or a show that's long been forgotten, good or bad, leave it as a suggestion below. I'm always on the lookout for obscured stuff.